People think history is written by extraordinary people. It isn't. History is built by ordinary people, making ordinary decisions under extraordinary pressure. Most are never remembered, but every now and then, someone leaves behind a story. Welcome to Cradlepoint. Mara was in early that morning. Cases piled on top of her desk a mile high. They always tried to give her the throwaways no one could figure out. She was not about to sift through them, though. She always passed them to Marcus, her partner, when he came in. He could handle the riffraff. She was there for the big guys, the bosses. She needed something better than the major drug bust they had gotten from those local gang members a year before. That was how she had gotten there. That was how she had earned her small desk. Diligence and good police work. The gold badge would be hers soon. Marcus came in 20 minutes late, carrying 2 coffees and wearing the same wrinkled tie he swore made him look approachable. Mara thought it made him look divorced. He dropped 1 cup beside her elbow and looked at the stack.
Morning to you too.
Mara pushed the first 3 folders towards his side of the desk.
Throwaways.
Marcus stared at her over the lid of his coffee.
You read them? I read the covers. So, no. So, I know enough.
Marcus shook his head and sat down. He liked the cases nobody else wanted. Runaways, petty theft, drug accidents, people who made bad decisions and expected the department to clean up afterward. He called it police work. Mara called it clutter. Cradlepoint had started to feel meaner. Disappearances, drug dealers, people vanishing from neighborhoods where folks used to know who belonged and who did not. The mayor kept making noise about putting more officers on the street, adding cameras, tightening patrol routes, like more eyes automatically meant fewer crimes. They did not. Thugs just got smarter. Dealers got quieter. Crews changed cars, phones, corners, names. More surveillance did not stop them from doing wrong. It only taught them how not to get caught. That was the job, though. Not preventing evil. Catching whoever got careless enough to leave something behind. Besides, Mara worked the west side. Things barely went wrong over there. Rich snobs, assholes really. Petty investigations about cheating husbands and HOA disputes. A waste of time in most cases. Although there had been 1 domestic violence call. The wife threw a hell of a right hook. Mara thought the captain had placed her there on purpose. She could not prove it. Maybe they hated seeing women like her rise through the ranks. It did not matter. She would outshine them all anyway. Then she noticed one of the folders had an interesting name on it. One of the richest last names in the city. Dryle. That name carried weight in Cradlepoint. Hospitals, real estate, private foundations. Money old enough to pretend it had never touched anything dirty. Mara pulled the folder from the stack. Marcus noticed.
Thought those were throwaways.
Most of them are. She opened it. Lucian Dryle, 42. No arrest record, no known gang ties, no history of violent behavior. Admitted to the clinic 3 nights earlier after crashing his car through the front gate of his family's estate. Released into private medical care the following afternoon. Toxicology showed morphine. Mara read that part twice. It was not uncommon for an overdose to happen on that side of town. Kids with no money, no supervision. Shit happened all the time. The precinct kept the Narcan crews on speed dial, but this was different. That name did not come across a police desk every day, and somehow the officers who handled the report had not even recognized it. Lucian Dryle ran the real estate division of his grandfather's company. Old money, the kind that had been sitting in Cradlepoint so long, people stopped asking how it got there. Some said the Dryles helped found the city. Lucian had been reported missing by his wife 2 days earlier. According to the file, he turned up at the clinic sometime after midnight, disoriented, sweating through his clothes, barely able to stand. By the time the staff got him into the withdrawal wing, he was shaking so hard they had to restrain him to keep him from hurting himself. Then the hallucination started. He kept insisting someone had followed him inside, said there was a man standing in the corner of the room, watching him. Every time the nurses turned to look, there was nobody there. The report called it acute withdrawal with psychotic features. Maybe. But men like Lucian Drow didn't disappear for 2 days and reappear at the clinic without leaving a mess behind. This could be Mara's chance. A discarded case with a name powerful enough to make people nervous and strange enough to deserve more than a quick label in a closed folder. She started searching the department database immediately. Lucian's listed address came up within seconds. Mara grabbed her coat and told Marcus she had a lead and would be back. She did not give him much more than that. Too many details invited questions, and questions had a way of turning into delays. Marcus was useful when she needed someone to clean up a mess. Right then, she needed room to move. The Drow estate sat deep on the outskirts of the city, past the last stretch of the ordinary neighborhoods, and well beyond anything most people in Cradlepoint would ever call home. The property seemed to go on forever. Iron fencing, perfectly trimmed trees, a private road long enough to make the city feel far away by the time Mara reached the house. And house was a generous word. The place looked more like a kingdom someone had forced into residential zoning. Stone walls, tall windows, multiple wings. The kind of architecture designed to remind visitors that whoever lived there had more money than they did and intended to keep it that way. Mara parked the cruiser near the front steps and made her way toward the porch. Before she could knock, the door opened. A butler stood there waiting for her.
Ah, yes, detective. We assumed someone would come by eventually.
He extended a hand in greeting, already speaking as if her arrival had been scheduled. Apparently, there was no need for Mara to introduce herself. He led her through the house and up a staircase wide enough to fit half the precinct. The walk to the master bedroom took longer than it should have. Hallways opened into sitting rooms. Sitting rooms opened into other hallways. Portraits watched from the walls. Generations of Drows staring down with the same expression. Wealth mistaken for permanence. When they finally reached the bedroom, Lucian was there. Pale, weak, recovering. His wife sat beside him, tending to him with a damp cloth, patting the sweat from his forehead, and adjusting the blankets whenever he began to tremble. He looked less like one of the most powerful men in Cradlepoint, and more like someone whose own body had turned against him. For the moment, his wife seemed determined to keep him comfortable while it did.
Good afternoon, Detective Mara, Cradlepoint West. I have a few questions about your husband's report. The clinic believed the circumstances were serious enough to involve us.
Mara kept her voice level and got straight to the point. She was not trying to be insensitive. She simply did not believe in wasting time, pretending not to ask what she had come to ask.
I am Aloita. It's nice to meet you, Detective. I don't think my husband can answer many questions right now. It takes everything I have just to ease his pain.
Aloita pressed the damp cloth to Lucian's forehead, then looked up at Mara with wet eyes. To Mara, she was as beautiful as she was dramatic. Mara was sure that whatever Lucian felt, the Drows had enough money to find the best doctors in the city and put them on call until it passed. Still, she felt something for him. A man with that much power, reduced to trembling beneath his own blanket. Morphine did not care about last name.
It's all right, love. Let the detective ask her questions.
Aloita nodded reluctantly and moved aside, leaving enough room for Mara to stand closer to the bed. Up close, Lucian looked worse. His skin had gone pale beneath the sweat, and every few seconds, a tremor moved through him, hard enough to shift the blankets. He reached weakly toward the nightstand. Mara picked up the glass of water and held it for him. He took a small sip, then drew in a slow, uneven breath. Pain tightened across his face before he managed to speak.
Do you remember anything before the clinic? Where were you? What were you doing? Who were you with? I got the drug from a friend. Real estate has been under strain. Lending pressure, delay. Projects sitting still while everyone expects answers.
His hands tightened against the blanket.
Work became overwhelming.
Mara waited.
He told me it would calm me down. Said it would make everything feel easier to carry, like life itself had become manageable.
Lucian swallowed.
What did he call it? Euphoria.
Mara reached into her coat and pulled out her notepad.
Euphoria? Yes, that's what he called it. But that doesn't explain why you disappeared for 2 days. Where did you go? And what did the drug look like? Green. He said it was better than morphine. Complete relief.
The answer came quickly, as if that part had stayed with him. A cough forced his way out of Lucian. Mara reached for the glass and helped him take another sip.
The feeling wore off too fast. I needed more. Your friend had more?
Lucian shook his head.
He knew where to get it. He took me there. Where?
His eyes shifted past Mara. Not toward Aloita, toward the far corner of the bedroom.
There was a man in the corner. Plastic curtains, lights, people whispering and breathing.
The temperature in the room dropped, not gradually. One moment the air was warm and stale with sickness. The next it felt cold enough to raise goose flesh along Mara's arms. Mara did not get chills. Not normally. Aloita must have seen the change in Lucian's face, because she stood abruptly.
This interview is over. He needs me.
Mara ignored her.
Give me a name, Lucian. Let me help you. Daryl Stedman.
She leaned closer. His eyes found hers for barely a second. Then his body went slack. Aloita rushed forward and pushed past Mara, calling Lucian's name as he checked his breathing. His chest still moved. There was nothing else Mara was going to get from him. The butler was already behind her. No words this time. Just a stiff posture and one hand angled toward the hallway. They wanted her gone. Mara left without arguing and headed back toward the precinct with the name sitting at the front of her mind. Daryl Stedman. She ran the name as soon as she got back. It did not sound familiar. The department database returned thousands of results at first. Repeat offenders, traffic violations, civil complaints. Normal people unlucky enough to share a name with the man she needed. Mara did not have much to work with beyond Lucian and the Drives, but that was enough to start narrowing. She cross-referenced Stedman against overdose reports that resembled Lucian's. The name surfaced again and again, always listed the same way: financial consultant. That was how the wealthy moved things through Cradlepoint. Not with cash and alleys, with accounts, trusts, private loan, controlled finance dressed up in respectable language. Stedman had no arrest record, no DUIs, not even a speeding ticket. Clean. Too clean. Mara had to dig deeper. The precinct kept years of backlog files in storage. Old reports, dead leads, half-finished investigations, and enough paperwork to bury a body without anyone noticing. Most of it was junk. But buried inside the mess, Mara found what she needed. Stedman appeared to have access to a network of some of the wealthiest people in West Cradlepoint. Executives, developers, attorneys, doctors. People whose names usually appeared on buildings instead of police reports. And somehow, his name kept showing up near incidents involving the same green drug, euphoria. The reports were scattered, sloppy, written by different officers who had no reason to believe they were looking at the same thing. One called Stedman a friend. Another listed him as an advisor. A third mentioned him only as the person who arranged transportation home. Always nearby, never accused. Marcus came in from the cold, gripping his coat around him, coffee in hand. He dropped into his chair with enough force to make the desk shake. He glanced at Mara's screen.
Still working on that drow shit? What do you mean?
Mara looked over at him.
Come on, Mara. It's written all over you. You haven't put it to rest yet.
He peeled the lid off his coffee. Mara ignored him. Some of the records looked wrong. Dates shifted by a day. Names shortened. Entire sections had been reduced to vague summaries that said almost nothing. Not enough to prove tampering, but enough to make her wonder why anyone had touched him, and why Stedman was tied to so many of the wealthiest people in the city. Marcus was being a coward, that was all. He did not understand what this could become, or what solving it could mean for her. Mara had worked too hard to earn her position. She was not about to let fear make her look uncertain now.
I got the name from Lucian himself, Daryl Stedman. He took him to get the drug.
Marcus stopped shaking his head long enough to look at her properly.
Mara, I don't know about this. What's there to know?
Marcus lowered his voice and glanced toward the rest of the precinct.
These are powerful people. You should probably let it go. Whatever this is, I don't think it's something they want becoming public.
That only made Mara more certain.
If something is happening to these people, then we find the truth before it gets worse. Mara, I'll take the risk, whether you agree with me or not.
Before she could say anything more, Captain Duquesne's voice cut across the room.
Mara, my office, now.
The entire precinct went quiet. It always did when Duquesne came out shouting. Phones lowered. Conversations stopped. Even the officers who pretended not to be watching found something nearby to stare at. Mara pushed back from her desk and stood. Marcus did not say anything. He just looked at her over the rim of his coffee, with the kind of expression that said he had already warned her. She crossed the room toward Duquesne's office. The scowl on his face told her this was not going to be a conversation. The door slammed behind her. Mara was not sure what she had done wrong. As far as she was concerned, she had only done what she always did: good police work.
Have a seat, Mara.
Mara sat across from him as he lowered himself behind the desk.
The trial case stays low priority. The family prefers discretion, and no formal charges have been filed against anyone. But Captain, no buts, Mara.
His voice hardened.
We do not need a public spectacle involving rich people with private problems. When they sent you here, they promised me you wouldn't cause trouble.
He leaned back, staring at Mara as if she were already becoming one.
That is what I expect. But Captain, I found a lead on the drug. Something is happening to these people, and this financial consultant appears to be at the center of it. It doesn't matter, Mara. Low priority. Am I clear?
Fine. Duquesne's eyes narrowed.
Come again.
Mara held his stare.
Yes, sir. Good. Besides, we have plenty of missing person cases and homicides that need attention immediately. The mayor expects every precinct to help the city find its citizens.
He waved toward the door.
Hop to it.
Mara rose from the chair slowly. She could not understand why he was blocking her. Maybe the Drowls had called. Maybe someone above him had. Either way, Duquesne had made it clear that finding the truth mattered less than keeping the right people comfortable. When Mara stepped back into the precinct, her desk seemed smaller than before, closed in, isolated. Everyone was staring, though most of them looked away the moment she noticed. Marcus shook his head as she sat down.
I told you, you have to let this one go, Mara.
He set his coffee on the desk and pulled one of the waiting case files into the space between them.
We can work on something together. Me and you.
Mara kept digging through the record, skimming anything that mentioned Stedman, Euphoria, or the people connected to either of them. She needed something solid, something she can put in front of Duquesne that would force him to take the case seriously. Then she found an address. It sat in the southwestern part of the city, tied loosely to one of the older reporters. An abandoned private club that had once catered to Cradlepoint's affluent crowd. The kind of place built for people who wanted to indulge without being seen doing it. From what Mara could tell, the club had shut down years earlier, around the same time addiction and homelessness started creeping too close to the surrounding district. Wealthy patrons stopped coming. Investors pulled out. The neighborhood was left to rot. But the building was still there. And it sounded perfect. Private, forgotten, far enough from the west side that nobody respectable would accidentally wander in. Exactly the kind of place someone might use to meet clients whose habits required discretion. Mara wrote down the address. That was where she would start. She grabbed her keys and coat and headed for the door. Marcus tried to catch up with her.
Mara!
She was already moving. Mara was not going to let him, Duquesne, or anyone else stop her from following the first real lead the case had produced. The address brought Mara to a building that looked as though the city had forgotten it on purpose. The club was completely abandoned, windows dark, signage stripped away. The surrounding lots were littered with the remains of old homeless camps, collapsed tents, broken shopping carts, stained blankets, trash pressed flat by weather. The city must have cleared the area during one of its sweeps. Whatever had been left behind looked old now, sun-bleached, waterlogged, forgotten. Mara drew her weapon before approaching the entrance and held her flashlight beneath it. The door gave with little resistance. Inside, the beam cut across dust, broken furniture, and peeling walls. Then it found the table. Boxes of empty medicinal capsules sat in plain view. Green capsules were spread across a folding table beside them. Some filled, some still separated into halves. Empty morphine bottles covered the floor. A gurney stood near the back of the room, fitted with restraints. Old medical equipment surrounded it. Monitors, tubing, trays, instruments Mara could not immediately identify. Dark blood stains marked the floor beneath it. This was not a place where addicts came to get high. Someone had been making euphoria there, testing it, maybe doing something worse. There were no scales, no cash, no bags divided for street sales, none of the usual signs of a drug operation. Whatever this was, it was not anything Mara had seen before. She switched on her radio, just in case she needed backup. Mara searched deeper into the building. The farther she went, the less it resembled an abandoned club. The main rooms still carried traces of what the place had once been. Rotting booths, cracked mirrors, warped wood. But the halls beyond them felt altered, repurposed. She heard footsteps from somewhere ahead. Faint, slow.
Cradlepoint Police, show yourself.
Nothing answered. Then her radio hissed with static. Mara grabbed it, thinking someone from the precinct had tried to reach her.
Detective Mara, go ahead.
Then her own voice came back through the speaker.
Detective Mara, go ahead.
Mara stared at the radio. She smacked it against her palm. Feedback. That was all. Or maybe she had not charged it long enough before leaving. The footsteps started again. Louder now. Behind her. Mara turned quickly, raising her weapon and flashlight. Darkness. Nothing else. When she turned forward again, a wall stood inches from her face. Mara froze. She did not remember walking into a dead end. For a moment, she stood there, trying to retrace the hallway in her head. Her mind was always playing tricks on her. The dark, the smell, the blood. That was all. She turned left and continued down the hall. Mara entered what looked like an administrative office. Metal file cabinets lined one wall. Paperwork covered the desk in uneven stacks, and several open liquor bottles lay on the floor beside two overturned glasses. People had sat there drinking while they discussed business, whatever kind of business this was. Mara searched the desk first, then the cabinet. Invoices, old membership records, utility bills, nothing worth risking her badge over. She stopped and looked around again. Too much effort had gone into hiding this place for the useful records to be sitting in an ordinary drawer. Mara ran her fingers beneath the desk. There. A small button recessed into the wood. The bottom drawer on the far left released with a soft metallic snap. Inside were dozens of folders. Mara pulled out the first one and opened it. EM Compound 1. The pages described a morphine-based formula delivered through green medicinal capsules, dosage schedules, batch numbers, behavioral observations, pain suppression, reduced anxiety, emotional dulling. Then came the warnings: severe cravings after the effects faded, agitation, violent behavior, rapid dependency, euphoria. Mara opened another folder: payment records. The Drow name appeared across several transfers, not just Lucian, but trusts and holding companies connected to the family. Hundreds of thousands of dollars moved through consulting fees and private investment accounts before disappearing into offshore banks. Stedman's name appeared on nearly every page. He was not supplying rich people with a recreational drug. He was managing the money behind it. Mara flipped through another set of documents and found lists of names. Some she recognized from the overdose reports. Others had been reported missing. A photograph slipped loose and landed on the desk. For 1 second, Mara thought she was looking at something inhuman. A woman with a stretched mouth, hollow eyes, and skin pulled tightly across her face. Something like banshees from stories her grandmother used to tell her. Mara blinked and picked it up. It was only a missing person photograph. A tired woman staring into the camera. Nothing more. She placed it beside the files and kept searching. Pay dirt. Mara took pictures of everything. The EM Compound 1 files, the payment records, the offshore transfers, the names. Then she placed each folder back exactly where she had found it. She could not carry all of it without making it obvious someone had been there, but the photographs were the proof. They had to be enough for Duquesne to act, enough to make him stop pretending this was just another rich family's private embarrassment. A noise came from outside the office. Mara drew her gun and stepped into the hallway. A man stood at the far end, staring back at her, sweating, anxious, terrified.
Hands up! Let me see your hands.
He bolted. Mara ran after him, following the sound of his footsteps through the corridor toward the front of the building. By the time she reached the main room, he was gone. No open door, no broken window, nothing moving. Mara raised her flashlight and slowly swept the room, searching for any sign of where he had gone. She moved closer to the gurney, sweeping the beam across the medical equipment. He came out from behind it without warning. A scalpel flashed in his hand. Mara twisted aside just before the blade reached her.
Drop it!
He lunged again. Mara fired. The round struck him in the leg. He cried out and collapsed beside the gurney, the scalpel skidding across the floor. Mara rushed forward, kicked the blade out of reach, and forced him onto his stomach before he could recover. He fought her for a few seconds, weak and frantic, but the wound had taken the strength out of him. She pulled his arms behind his back and secured the cuffs. Then she grabbed her radio.
Dispatch, this is Detective Marr. Shots fired. One suspect wounded and in custody. Send medical and back up to my location.
For once, the radio answered normally. Mara looked around at the capsules, the morphine bottles, the restrained gurney, and the blood-stained floor. This time, they could not call it low priority. Marcus arrived with backup and medical minutes later. The building filled with officers, paramedics, evidence technicians, and enough flashing lights to turn the abandoned club visible from blocks away. They collected everything: the green capsules, the empty morphine bottles, the medical equipment, blood samples from the floor and gurney, every box, vial, restraint, and document they could find. It was a win, a real one. Marcus climbed out of his cruiser and came toward Mara fast, his coat hanging open behind him.
What the fuck, Mara?
She barely looked at him. Mara stood beside the wounded man while the paramedics worked on his leg.
Who are you? What were you doing here?
The man turned his head toward her.
Stedman.
Then he smiled.
My name is Daryl Stedman.
For a moment, neither of them spoke.
You opened the wrong door, detective.
One of the paramedics attached a small IV, while Mara checked the cuffs around Stedman's wrist. They lifted him into the ambulance. As the doors began to close, he leaned forward just enough for Mara to hear him.
It will follow you.
Then the doors shut. Mara was puzzled. Stedman did not know what he was saying. He had probably started using his own supply.
We got him, Marcus. This is it. Now they have to let me take this further. I don't know, Mara. You went in without authorization, and you just shot a man connected to some of the richest people in the city. He attacked me. That won't be the part they care about.
He shook his head.
Captain might not like this.
Marcus was wrong. When they returned to the precinct, Captain Duquesne was already waiting for Mara.
Mara, my office.
This time his voice carried no anger. He closed the door behind them and walked around his desk with a smile.
Excellent work, Mara.
Mara stood there, unsure whether she had heard him correctly.
I should have listened to you. You showed exceptional vigilance and good police work.
Mara tried not to smile too quickly.
Thank you, sir. What happens now? Now, we prepare a public statement. The more visibility we create, the more pressure we put on anyone connected to Stedman. He may have only been one piece of something much larger.
Duquesne leaned forward against his desk.
Right. I'll organize everything immediately. Excellent.
That was it. Mara left his office with pride written across her face. Officers stopped her as she crossed the room. A few shook her hand. Others offered quiet congratulations. Even some of the men who normally whispered jokes when they thought she could not hear gave her approving nods. It felt good. The recognition, the respect, proof that Mara had been right when everyone else told her to stop. Marcus returned later after the scene had been cleared. He looked exhausted, his coat dusty from the building, but there was something else in his face. Concern.
Mara, you need to see this.
He waved her toward the desk and spread several evidence photographs and inventory sheets across the surface.
What am I looking at? The capsules we recovered. The records in that office reference batch numbers in the thousands, multiple shipments, regular payments.
He pointed to one of the reports.
So?
Marcus placed another photograph beside it, a floor plan of the old club.
The room you found contained a few hundred capsules at most, and the medical equipment was enough for one patient at a time.
He tapped the blueprint.
This building has 3 lower levels: storage rooms, service corridors, private suites. We only searched the accessible section before the structural team declared the lower access unsafe and stopped us.
Mara looked down at the documents again. The numbers did not match the scene. The payments were too large. The supply was too small. The operation described in those files could not have fit inside one abandoned room. Marcus lowered his voice.
What you found wasn't the operation, Mara.
He pointed to the office photograph.
It was one room.
Mara nodded slowly.
Yes, but it's a start.
Marcus looked at her.
Not if everything was left there on purpose.
Mara arrived the next morning and called the clinic to find out when Stedman will be ready for pickup.
There's no one here by that name.
Mara checked the number to make sure she had called the right place.
Daryl Stedman, gunshot wound to the leg. He was brought in by ambulance yesterday evening.
I'm sorry, Detective. We have no patient under that name. Mara hung up and called booking. Nothing. No intake record, no transfer paperwork, no indication that Stedman had ever been brought into custody. She went downstairs to evidence.
Did everything from the club get processed?
The officer behind the counter looked confused.
We didn't get anything new yesterday. What about the capsules, medical equipment, documents?
He shook his head.
Same old shit. Cocaine, unregistered guns, stolen property.
Mara stood there staring at him. How could an entire crime scene disappear? Where were the evidence technicians, the ambulance records, the officers who had searched the building? Where was the public statement Duquesne had promised? Where was Stedman? At least Mara still had the photographs. She returned to her desk and opened her phone. The first image was blurred beyond recognition. The next one was streaked with digital noise. Another refused to load at all. Mara went through every picture she had taken. Corrupted, ruined, gone. Marcus still remembered the floor plan and inventory sheets, but the copies he had shown her were gone from his desk. The digital files had vanished from the department system as if they had never existed. Mara called the Dryle estate next. The butler answered.
This is Detective Marr. I need to speak with Lucian Dryle or his wife. The Dryles have taken leave and will no longer be available for the foreseeable future, Detective.
His voice was colder than before, formal, final.
I was at the estate yesterday. I interviewed Mr. Dryle personally. They will not be accepting any further contact. Wait!
He hung up. Mara lowered the phone slowly. This could not be happening. Stedman was gone. The evidence was gone. Her photographs were useless. Marcus's records had vanished, and the Dryles had sealed themselves away. Everything Mara had found was disappearing around her. She grabbed her keys and headed for the cruiser. She still had the clubhouse. Even if the main evidence had been removed, there had to be something left behind. Blood, equipment marks, a loose capsule, anything. Marcus had also mentioned the lower levels. Mara could photograph the layout herself and prove the building was larger than the official records showed. She drove aggressively through traffic, cutting between lanes and ignoring the horns behind her. Mara reached the address within minutes. From the outside, the building looked the same. Inside, it did not. She stepped through the entrance and stopped. There was one large event room, two smaller rooms in the back, a men's restroom, a women's restroom, a kitchen. That was it. No administrative office, no medical room, no long corridors, no staircase leading down. Mara searched the walls for sealed entrances and checked behind the bar for service doors. She opened every cabinet, every closet, every storage space. Nothing. No bloodstains, no green capsules, no empty morphine bottles, no medical equipment too large or damaged to remove. Just an ordinary abandoned event building. The place had not merely been cleaned, it was structurally different from the night before. And that was impossible. Mara made it back to the precinct in a daze. Everything was gone, vanished like part of some elaborate magic trick. The suspect, the evidence, the floor plan. even the building she had walked through with her own eyes. All Mara had left was yesterday's praise and a promise of recognition that had never became anything real. Marcus was already at his desk, sorting through the cases Mara had pushed aside earlier.
Hey, you need to see this.
Mara barely looked at him.
What?
He spread several folders across the desk.
It isn't just wealthy people.
That caught Mara's attention. Marcus opened one report, then another. Overdoses, missing person, assaults, people from neighborhoods all over the city. Different ages, different incomes, different lives.
It's everyone. And Lucian wasn't the first.
Mara stared down at the files. Marcus looked at her carefully.
You ignored all of these and went after the withdrawals because you wanted the recognition. You only cared because of the name.
He was right. The words cut deeper because of it. But Mara could not let him know that.
The withdrawals gave us a connection. Stedman had access to people across the city. If we prove who controls the supply, it helps everyone in those files.
Marcus did not respond. Mara gathered the reports and pulled them closer. She just needed stronger evidence. Something concrete. Something no one could misplace, alter, or make disappear. Next time, she would secure it herself. That was the problem. Everyone else had been sloppy. They had dropped the ball, and now Mara had to find everything all over again. Buried in one of the older reports was another address connected to Stedman. This one sat closer to the west side. Safer neighborhood, better roads, easier access for the kind of people who did not want to be seen traveling too far from home. The address appeared only once, buried beneath a witness statement and listed as a secondary meeting location. Easy to miss unless someone was looking for Stedman specifically. Mara tore the page free and reached for her coat.
Mara!
Marcus stood. She kept moving.
Hey, wait. Let it go. You have to. I'm not letting anything go. Then at least let me come with you. No, I've got it.
Mara grabbed her keys.
You said that yesterday. And you all fumbled yesterday.
His face tightened.
That isn't fair.
Mara did not care whether it was fair. Evidence vanished, records changed, people pretended conversations had never happened. Either the department was incompetent, or someone inside it was helping everything disappear. Maybe both. Mara could not trust any of them now. Not Duquesne, not evidence, not even Marcus. Someone wanted her confused, discredited, stuck at the same desk while everyone else moved ahead. She was not going to let that happen. Mara would solve this herself. No backup, no interference, no one else waiting around to take credit once she did the work. Her mind was made up. She left without saying anything else. It was getting late. Mara had spent the entire day running in circles, chasing evidence that disappeared every time she got close enough to touch it. The drive toward the new address felt wrong almost immediately. Traffic thinned until there was none. No commuters, no delivery trucks, no people waiting at intersections or hurrying home before dark. The surveillance cameras mounted above the road seemed to turn away as Mara approached, their black lenses rotating toward empty sidewalks and vacant streets. Public transit had vanished too. No buses, no trains passing in the distance, not even a lone rider sitting beneath a bus shelter. Static crackled through the radio. Then Mara's voice came through.
Detective Mara, go ahead.
Mara stared at the dashboard.
Detective Mara, go ahead.
She switched the radio off. Feedback, a damaged receiver, some crossed frequency the department had not bothered fixing. Mara had not noticed the GPS change directions until the next turn appeared on the screen. It must have found a faster route. Her phone buzzed on the passenger seat. Marcus. She ignored it. It stopped, then started again. And again. Mara finally answered.
What Marcus?
Static filled the line. Then his voice came through, stretched and broken.
It isn't following you.
She pressed the phone closer to her ear.
What? Marcus?
You're following it.
The call ended. Mara looked at the screen. No signal. Strange, but not impossible. Service on that side of the city had always been unreliable. She placed the phone back on the passenger seat and kept driving. The second building was smaller than the first. One window set off to the left, blacked out from the inside. No light, no movement. From the outside, it looked medical in a quiet sort of way, as though it had once been a private healthcare practice for select patients, the kind of place people with money used when they wanted treatment without question. Mara went in easily. It was not locked, not bolted shut, nothing. That bothered her more than if she had been forced to break in. The air smelled old and used, disinfectant, ammonia, something stale underneath it all, like sickness clinging to the walls. Then Mara saw it, exactly as Lucian had described. Fluorescent lights above her flickered in short, dying bursts, their energy almost spent. To the right, plastic curtains hung from metal bars on rolling frames, partitioning the room into makeshift treatment spaces. A gurney sat in the middle of one of them, recently used. Medical equipment surrounded it, some of it old, some of it looking almost clean enough to still be in service. In the corner, capsules were piled in shallow trays and open boxes. Some were empty, some were filled. Green. Fresh blood stained the straps attached to the gurney. Mara's pulse quickened, just like the other building. Another production site, another testing site. She had found another one. A table had been pushed against the front wall. Backpacks, purses, wallets, and loose personal effects sat piled across it like someone had emptied people out and kept only what they carried. Mara started going through them. Driver's licenses, store receipts, prescription cards, family photos tucked into wallets, cheap keychains, bus passes, names. Some of the names matched the reports she had thrown aside, the same missing people Marcus had forced her to look at. People from different neighborhoods, different backgrounds, different lives. Not just the wealthy, everyone. A cold realization settled in Mara's chest, that this was not a place where they sold drugs. It was a hub, a processing point. The picture forming in Mara's mind was clear. People were brought through there, dosed, tested, maybe held for a time, then sent back into the city, or allowed to vanish into the streets, already practiced at swallowing them whole. Missing people, addicts, drifters, maybe anyone they thought no one would fight too hard to find. Or perhaps the wealthy were only one side of it, one market, and the rest of Cradlepoint was another. Mara heard something behind her. She turned fast, bringing her gun up beside the flashlight and aiming both toward the darkened far corner of the room. At first, she thought it was just a man standing there. Then her eyes adjusted. The shape was wrong, distorted. His arms hung too long, nearly past where a normal man's hands should have rested. One eye sat lower than the other. Its shoulders seemed uneven, as if the body had been assembled without much care for symmetry. It did not move. It did not blink. Mara had built her career by ignoring fear, pushing through it, outworking it, outthinking it. That was how she became who she was. But this chilled her. Her hands trembled just enough for her to notice. Mara tightened her grip and forced her breathing to slow.
Show me your hands.
She stepped closer, her weapon trained where she guessed the head should be. The thing still did not move. Then Mara's radio crackled.
Mara, do not go in.
Marcus. Mara's head snapped toward the sound. How did he know where she was? Before she can answer, her flashlight died. The room dropped into darkness. At the same time, the fluorescent lights overhead cut out with a sharp pop, and the last of their weak buzzing vanished. Something moved, fast. A hand, or something like a hand, reached out for Mara out of the dark. She tried to pull back, but it was already on her. Then she was engulfed. Not struck, not thrown, embraced. Wrapped in something cold and close and impossibly strong. And then there was silence. Marcus got the call as soon as he reached the detective floor. An abandoned police cruiser had been found on the west side early that morning. Patrol officers were already securing the scene. Mara had not reported for duty, so they sent him. Mara was never late. He knew the cruiser the moment he arrived. It was hers. Everything had been left running. Headlights, dashboard, radio. The keys were still in the ignition. On the passenger seat sat the page Mara had torn from the files.
So this is where you came.
But Mara was not there. There was no blood, no sign of a struggle, no obvious trail leading away from the vehicle. Her phone was gone, but everything else looked untouched. Marcus entered the small building nearby. Empty. Old furniture, a couple of vacant rooms, dirt, clutter, nothing worth investigating. No medical equipment, no capsules, no blood, nothing resembling the place Mara had been chasing. She was simply gone. Marcus called her phone. Busy signal. He tried again. The same. Marcus rushed back to the precinct. He needed Duquesne. They needed officers, searching immediately. Traffic cameras, hospitals, transit stations, every road leading away from that building. Before he could reach the captain's office, the door opened. Captain Duquesne stepped onto the floor.
Detective Mara failed to report for duty and is presently considered missing. At this time, investigators have found no confirmed evidence of foul play.
He said it coldly, plainly, like he was reading the weather. Then he stepped back into his office and shut the door. No one questioned him. No one moved. Marcus looked around at all of them, disgusted. One of their own had vanished, and the entire precinct had accepted it before the search had even begun. But what could he do? Mara would have called him a coward. She would not have been wrong. Marcus sat down at Mara's desk. Her notes were still scattered across it. The Dryals, Stedman, Euphoria. Names circled, addresses underlined, questions written in the margins. Pieces of something she had been trying to force into a shape the rest of them could see. A fresh stack of cases waited beside them. Her own file sat on top. Detective Mara, missing. That was all it took. A name, a label, a few pages. Mar had been reduced to one more case file, and Marcus had no idea how to look for her. The truth was, he was afraid. If Mar could disappear, so could he. Marcus placed his hand on the folder. "I'm sorry, Mar." Then he moved it to the bottom of the stack.